Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Vaughn Lane. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined daily by Bobby Burton, and today we got Jeff Powell filling in for Jerry Hamilton, who's on the road this morning. Be sure to tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in. It's also 51 days away from kickoff, so tell us who your favorite number 51 is. We'll circle back to that here in just a little bit. Let's start with recruiting this morning. And Bobby, you actually wrote a piece over on TexasFootball.com that had to do with it a little bit. I'm going to let you go with it.
Yeah, there's two pieces of conversation here in that article this morning. One is what's happening today and in the immediate future as it relates to recruiting. And then a broader look of what roles Texas really needs to fill, given they're already at 17 commitments and where they need to go from here. But let's start with what's happening today. Temple defensive end Jamarian Carlton, young man, is slated to choose between Texas, Baylor, and Texas Tech. He has played. He's extremely active, athletic, long, rangy kind of guy that you'll see here. He gets his hands in the passing lane. A couple of notes as it relates to his recruitment for Jamarian Carlton. One is Texas was the leader at one point. Then he went and visited Baylor. I think Baylor became the leader at one point. Texas Tech has been mentioned. If this is Texas Tech, I think it's going to be similar to the Felix Ojo announcement. Carlton has not really mentioned them much as a finalist or as had much to say about them. We'll see if that takes place. We'll see if Baylor is it. Baylor has made Central Texas, especially the northern part of Central Texas around the Waco area, a priority this year. Getting London Smith, a couple other guys up that way. So we'll see what happens here. The industry experts, I put that in quotations, say it's an 88% chance that he picks Baylor today. So keep that in mind. Also on the recruiting radar for Texas is cornerback Samari Smoke Matthews out of Charlotte, North Carolina. He announces tomorrow at 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern. Texas and South Carolina thought to be the finalists there. Texas should be in good position, really good position for Samari Matthews. However, things happen this day and age of recruiting. With Carlton, he announces today at 4 o'clock at Temple High School, I believe as well. So that's the recruiting situation right now. We'll talk a little bit more about Samari Matthews as well as those positions that we need to discuss a little bit later and what Texas needs what Texas really has left to go attack and get in the portal, or not in the portal, but in recruiting.
All right, guys. Before we move on this morning, I do want to say, as we like to do on here, happy birthday to Kevin Nye. He says today's my birthday. Woke up with the usual aches and pains. Bobby understands we're about the same age. I'm a year older. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em to you, Kevin. Happy birthday, buddy. I saw some folks in the chat beforehand saying happy birthday to you as well. That's always good stuff. Always good stuff. Hey, Blake, before we go further, I want to say thank you to our friends over at Vaughn Lane each and every Thursday morning, brought to you by Vaughn Lane. When you need to travel between major cities in Texas, you've been stuck historically with two flawed options: fly and roll the dice with airport delays, security lines, and packed terminals, or drive and lose 5 hours to traffic, construction, and fatigue. Or now you can choose the third way, Vaughn Lane. You arrive at a high-end hotel terminal, no airport chaos, no parking nightmares, no stress, just a few easy steps and you're boarding in just minutes. It's a great seat too, spacious, reclining, wrapped in leather, personal power outlets, fast Wi-Fi, onboard attendance. You can relax or work on Vaughn Lane. The Vaughn Lane operations team is behind the scenes monitoring real-time traffic and adjusting routes to keep you moving. Now's the perfect time to plan ahead. Booking is open through September. Texas has 3 road games in September. So you can lock in travel for fall football weekends in Austin, business trips to Dallas or Fort Worth, or a getaway to Houston or San Antonio. Vaughn Lane proudly serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, and San Antonio. Now they even go to Nashville, Memphis, Knoxville, and Atlanta as well. Visit VaughnLane.com. Use promo code OTF25 to save $20 off your first ride. Visit VaughnLane.com and use promo code 25 to save $20 off your first ride. Vaughn Lane, elevated regional bus transportation. I know a lot of you guys use it already. We appreciate them as a sponsor of On Texas Football.
That's right. Good stuff. They're everywhere. Well, ESPN came out with an article yesterday, fellas, where they looked at each top 25 team and they named the area of concern that could derail that team's season. Any guesses on what they named for Texas?
I'm gonna guess the offensive line.
You would guess correct. That is correct, guys. Offensive line there. They said the Longhorns lost 4 starters on the O-line to the NFL draft and are breaking in a new quarterback, although Arch made 2 starts last season, as well as several key receivers, but then goes on to talk about who they lost in the offensive line. So that is their major area of concern for Texas.
Jeff, what do you think? Is that fairly obvious? Because you and I were on the same page.
Yeah, just if you're looking at it from a 30,000-foot view and say, well, they lost a bunch of starters, they got to replace guys. Look, I mean, the talent level, I think, is going to be on par potentially. Even though you lose a top 10 draft pick in Kelvin Banks, Cam Williams, when healthy, played much better than where his draft position was. The big loss for me, and I think from a talent standpoint, and this offense being a better goal line, short yardage, red zone offense, I think that interior trio of DJ Campbell, Neto, and Cole Hudson has a chance to be just as good, if not better, than the DJ Campbell, Jake Majors, Hayden Connor group. The one thing you really can't make up for, though, is the experience you're losing with Jake Majors and Hayden Connor. Those guys played a lot of football. And you go back to 4th and 13 against Arizona State. Quinn gets credit for that. Jake Majors deserves a lot of credit for that too. Just making line calls, or you can't replace the experience of a 56-game starter. Started more games than anybody in the history of the program. That said, Bobby, I agree with Tony Hill's assessment. I think you're going to be more athletic at tackle this year, and I really think the success of that offensive line is going to come down to that interior trio, how those guys mesh together, how it comes together. Because again, I think the ability of those 3 guys at the point of attack, it could make you not only better in areas where you were deficient last year, could make you a more diverse running team. And I think as the season goes on, that's something, that Texas was a predominantly outside zone team last year. I think that caught up to them in the playoff and late in the season where they kind of got predictable. If they can be more unpredictable, be more diverse on the ground, that could be the difference between them getting over the hump into the national championship game and not.
2 things I think of. First of all, everybody's right that it's the biggest question mark on the team, in my opinion. And the reason it's the biggest question mark is because it has 4 new starters, essentially, or 3.5 new starters at different positions for Cole Hudson, by the way. And then the right guard, DJ Campbell, is back. Nato takes over at left guard. Trevor Gooseby at left tackle. And we think right now, as of right now at least, Brandon Baker at right tackle. The question I have for all of us is this: we expect, because they're bigger, stronger type guys, the interior to be better at run blocking. Well, they weren't starting at some level because they weren't as good at pass blocking as their predecessors. So are you giving up something in pass blocking with those guys on the interior? And what does that mean? That may not have been really good news at all for someone like Quinn Ewers, who did not have the escapability. Now, maybe that is mitigated somewhat because Arch Manning does, but you're giving up something there. I just want people to know that Nato is not as good, or was not as good, in pass protection as Hayden Connor. Otherwise, he would have started, I think, because he was very good in run blocking. So I think that we've got to realize that there's a give and take there, and not just think, oh, well, this is all going to be run-centric. The other question I have for you is this. I mean, given that, Jeff and Blake, given that we all said offensive line right off the bat, what's the second one for you? I mean, I have one that I like. What's the second biggest concern I have for this team? It's not tight end or wide receiver or quarterback or even running back or any other place. Mine is the secondary. And the reason why is because I think the secondary operated at like the offensive line I thought was good last year, but I don't think they operated at this unbelievable level, right? So even a little bit less or holding serve is doable, and it's not going to change the outcome of the team. The secondary last year I thought was unbelievable, by and large, like unbelievable. I mean, Andrew Makuba, Jahdae Barron, Michael Taft. You're not going to get three smarter football players than that in one secondary. You're just not. You lost two of those guys in Makuba and Barron. And so my piece on it is I'm a little concerned about the secondary after the linebackers. And the reason why is not because Texas doesn't have talent. We know they have talent. This team's loaded. The question is whether or not they play together like they did last year. They played like such a unit last year. I mean, Makuba fit like a glove. I mean, and you don't expect that from a transfer to almost just pick it up right then. What is your number two spot secondary, Jeff? And do you think my concerns about the secondary are valid, or
no? They're valid. Here's my thing. I agree with you on the O-line point that you're going to give up something, but I think Arch's pocket presence, his ability to feel the rush and adjust accordingly, I think is going to mitigate a lot of that, especially because you've got, after the Ohio State game, you've got 3 games to really kind of figure it out and then a bye week before you get the SEC play. So I'm not as concerned about that part of it. I don't know if it's, what Defcon level you're on, Bobby, but it's not super high up on a list of concerns for me. It's moderate level of concern, I guess. On the secondary, I agree with the last part you said about communication and how it all works on the field. Because just like I talked about the experience with Jake Majors, you can't replace that communication triangle, if you will, that Texas had with Jahdae Barron, Andrew Makuba, and Michael Taft. You can't. That's really hard to replicate. That said, and we talked to actually football theory drops today. Rod and I talked a little bit about this in football theory. I think one of the benefits that Texas is going to have by having maybe the best pass rush in the country, maybe the best defensive front in the country in terms of just diverse ways to organically get after the quarterback, where you don't have to blitz. You can just deploy personnel and you should be able to get after the quarterback. It's going to give you some time to really figure out what you can hang your hat on coverage wise, number one. And number two, I think you're diverse enough, Bobby, with your personnel. And we've seen the evolution of this defense be one that's gone from kind of a static zone coverage to pattern match quarters to some cover 3 stuff, some middle field post safety last year. I think Texas can be whatever it wants to be on the back end. And I think that's good because I still think, and maybe this is me being naive, I still think the easiest coverage for a young corner, and corner is my real concern, Bobby. I'm not as concerned about safety as I am corner. But I still think the quote-unquote easiest coverage, and I say that, it relatively speaking, the easiest coverage for a young corner to play is man coverage. And I think between Kobe Black, Grayson Littleton, Santana Wilson, Cade Phillips, I think you've got some young corners that can excel playing man coverage and can excel playing press man coverage. So I think you've got, the Ohio State game, I think you're going to see more of the experienced guys, but those young corners in the rest of non-conference play, by the time you get to SEC play, who rises up, who can Mark Orfe and Dwayne Aquina really trust to be on the field. I think a lot of the communication issues or potential for mishaps, I think that could be mitigated just by the fact that based on opponents, based on schemes, you can be diverse to make sure at all times you've got the right personnel on the field.
Here's people are asking in the chat, what do I mean here? I mean, what's your level? And you asked me the Defcon level. Yeah. Let's do 2 things, okay? What did you think last year, 2024? You rate the offensive line performance 1 to 10. What would you rate that performance? 1 to 10.
6.5, 7.
Okay, I go 7 to 7.5 to 8. Because I mean, you don't win 13 games with a mediocre offensive line or an average offensive line, even though 3 guys got drafted too, by the way. Yeah. 4th one in NFL camp. So I think they were probably a little bit better. I think there may be a 6 this year for me from a 7.5. I think the downside is a 6. I think they have a 7.5 to 8 upside. So that's very small piece for me, right? Now let's talk about the secondary. What would you grade the 2024 secondary 1 to 10?
9.5.
Okay. So that's where we're at. So what's the downside risk of the secondary? Is the secondary downside a 7? And I think it kind of is 6.5, 7, because communication is so key. New players. You lost the Thorpe Award winner, a second-round pick that went to the Super Bowl champs. And so what I'm saying, I guess, is there's a greater delta for me of that. I still think they're going to be very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be a 7-ish. Like their average will be higher than what the offensive line's average response would be, in my opinion. But there's a greater case for a significant drop in the secondary. That's all I'm saying.
I will agree. I'll agree with you that the average of the secondary could be greater than the offensive line. That's how much, number one, I respect Michael Taff as a returning All-American, and especially as much one high safety as Texas can play. I think between his instincts, ball skills, everything, I think he's perfect as a middle field safety in a single high. And I'm not as concerned, maybe, Bobby, as some other people about Manny Muhammad, his late season air quote struggles. I think a lot of that had to do with there were just more opportunities for him to get picked on, because after the Arkansas game, I think people started realizing, you know what? Let's stop trying to throw the ball on Jahdae Barron's side of the field. It's not going to work. Like, he's too good. So I just think it was the lesser of two evils. And, I really feel like if Manny took that for what it was a learning experience. I mean, look, Rod's talked about on this. Rod's been that guy, because at some point in Rod's career, people decided, you know what? Throwing the ball at Quentin Jammer doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Let's just try our luck on the other side of the field. So, if Manny took that for what it was as a learning experience and he grows from it, I think he's going to be better for it on the other side. At the end of the day, though, as far as concern levels, I'm glad you gave us the numbering system, because I still think when you look at Texas question marks relative to everybody else in the country, I think you're talking about Texas going into this season as the most complete team in the country, just from the standpoint of their Texas question marks are not as concerning as some of the other teams' question marks.
I agree. Now, compared to other teams, I'm talking about internally.
Yeah, right. Internally. Oh, I just want to make clear, like, when we're talking about the level of concern here, like I put Ohio State's quarterback concerns at a much higher level than I do the Texas offensive line. If you want to look at just compare it to other top teams in the country. But it's one of those deals, Bobby. They're really talented. How quickly can that talent turn into production? Yeah,
this is what comment real quick I want to speak to. Bobby is the JB. Bobby is the old man. True story there. That it thinks experience trumps talent. It's just not true. There's a level of truth to that. I think that experience can trump talent at certain times. I'm not saying it always does, for sure. I'm not an idiot. What I would say is this, though, okay? Experienced talent is really hard to replace. Texas had Jahdae Barron was not only experienced, he was a first-round pick. Andrew Makuba was not only experienced, he was talented. He was a second-round pick.
Yeah.
So you're replacing experienced talent, not just experience. And that's where I think you're wrong, JB, in your estimation of how I'm looking at it. I'm not as worried. Like I just said, I'm actually, there are elements that I think you could fall down a little bit more on in the secondary than you could at offensive line. I think, I'll give you another one. Let's do another position. Okay. Just for grins, because I think this is actually a good conversation for expectation levels we have, each of us. I mean, let's talk about quarterback. What would you, 1 to 10, what would you rate Quinn Ewers a year ago?
7.5 or 8.
I would go 7.5. So All right. Now, what is the downside of Arch and what is the upside of Arch in your opinion?
The upside of Arch is a 10. The upside of Arch is a
Okay.
quarterback that can be in New York and get you to a national championship game.
Okay. So what's the downside though? At the very worst, what kind of year do you expect him to have? 6.5?
No, I'm thinking 7.5.
Okay. So
yeah.
That's what I'm getting at here is that's what we're really talking about. Like year over year position group.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's strong. I think 6.5 is the low for him. Just because he's a new starter, could throw some bad interceptions. I mean, Quinn threw some bad ones last year, right? A&M game to Will Lee, Arizona State game late in that game. That's reality. Does Arch do the same earlier in the season? I get it, but my point being, different positions, you can look at all of them and kind of take this. What did we get last year versus what are we going to get this coming year? Blake, you had something?
Yeah. Well, I am going to have something for Coach Shipley here. Bob weighing in this morning. He says, but how much does Akina help? He has to boost them to an 8 in his mind.
That's fair. I mean, look, I think coordinating on the back end, especially communication, could be helpful with Dwayne Akina. That is one thing that he always preached in the secondary. So I do think that can matter. But it's not like Texas wasn't well coached last year. And this is a question for Bob that he can take up later today with Rod and CJ in the winning drive is, Texas really made a hell of an improvement year over year last year. I mean, think about it. If we were talking about 2023, they were getting thrown on up and down the field at times. 2024, they made a hell of an improvement. Was that because of Makuba and Barron and communication improvement as well as Taft full time? I don't know. Another year of Manny Muhammad. We'll see. I think Bob's got it right. Communicate. I think that communication in the secondary will be key. And I will say that will be something that Dwayne Akina stresses.
You also the a couple pieces though that it's not a concern for me. I just want to know how they fit. Jalen Gilbo with the nickel, his growth, and then also again talk about changing it week to week, scheme by scheme, opponent by opponent. How much big nickel do you play with Jelani McDonald, and how much of that hinges on when is Derek Williams healthy and ready to go full bore? So there's still, I think those three pieces, not so much, Bobby, from the communication standpoint, but just in terms of figuring out your personnel and how to best deploy your personnel. The other part of this too, I still think all things equal, Texas has the best pass rush in the country in 2025. Yeah. So I think that to me is the difference between the 23 defense. And again, the secondary issues were glaring, right? Like we don't need to rehash that. Like we all watched the Sugar Bowl. But I think a lot of your secondary issues can be mitigated, similar to what we talk about with some of the offensive line, the pass blocking concerns, Arch's escapability, pocket presence can mitigate some of that. I think the fact that you got the best pass rush in the country, I think that can mitigate some of the concerns on the back end, and it leaves you a little. It just having that margin for error, I think, just makes you feel a little bit better about the growth potential of that group.
Yeah. All right. I just want to be clear. I think this is a good discussion. I just want to be clear. I do think that experience at times trumps talent, but what Texas lost in the secondary wasn't just experience last year. It was talent combined with experience. And that's my point. That's why I think the secondary has more give to it than maybe the offensive line even.
There's something I want to get into related to that too, Bobby. I don't know if you want to switch topics right now or wait a minute, but something you said recently, you made a point on the message board over on TexasFootball.com. Somebody talking about wide receiver and talking about the wide receiver room is loaded. I think this was right after the Jalen Lott decision, and you made a really good point. And I'm sorry if I'm misrepresented, Bobby, but basically it was, we don't know if it's loaded yet. We know there's talent in that room, but we don't know, like, we can't count on what you're going to get from Khalil Lockett or Jamie French or any of these young guys, Parker Livingstone, because they haven't done it yet. That to me is where, and this kind of bleeds into some of what Sark would call crying from a yacht. You have talent. Do you have talented depth? And what I mean by talented depth is, do you have a backup where hey, if something happens to that starter, you have a backup that can go in and you're confident that they can do the job? Well, I think we can all agree that some of the guys in the 2 deep are really talented. Like, I'll go back to corner, whether it's Cade Phillips, Grayson Littleton, Santana Wilson, Kobe Black, you're going to find a starting caliber corner out of the group of 4 in some way, shape, or form. But how long does it take them to emerge? Which of the 4 is it? You can't bank on it being one of those guys. So talented depth to me is something you can count on. I think there's some positions on this team where you've got talented depth, and then there's some like wide receiver and corner where you got talent. I don't necessarily know if you've got talented depth in terms of a 2 deep that's ready right now to go win a national title.
I wish Bob Shipley would comment on this, because he had 2 sons that were ready early in their careers. And that's the fundamental issue right now for Texas. They took 4 wide receivers last year, Dalen McCutcheon, as well as Jamie French, Khalil Lockett, and Michael Terry, right? Mm-hmm. The proof is, the problem with all 4 of those guys is the proof is in the pudding. Okay. You could, and of the ones there that are out there, the one that we have heard has proven the most in practice at this point is Dalen McCutcheon. So the fact that he's actually ahead speaks to the fact that, well, maybe that means the others aren't necessarily at the same level right now. And so what is their depth level, and what's the quality of that depth, even though they're very talented? And I will say this, I don't think the Texas wide receiver room is loaded. I mean, outside of Ryan Wingo, do I see a high first-round draft pick in that room right now? I don't know that it, like, I could see Wingo being that guy if he continues to improve and builds on his body and, doesn't have injuries, et cetera. But beyond that, is there another high first-round draft pick in that room? I don't know the answer to that. And so this team is much more talented than when my boys came through. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. The reality for it, though, is when I say not loaded, Jeff, it's because I think the first group is as good as just about you're going to get. I really, really do believe that. Although I think that the Whittington, Mitchell, and Worthy group were better. I mean, this group is not that, but they have some trajectory to them. I'm not sure this group is as versatile when you had a Worthy that could take the top off, and a Mitchell that could, do the 50-50 ball, and the Whittington was the underneath guy that did all the dirty work. I don't think this group's as I think they're talented, but I don't think they're as versatile. My question and my issue when you say Texas is loaded at wide receiver, look, to me, they've got 3 guys that have proven it. I do believe Parker Livingstone will step up this year. I saw him in spring camp. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
So I think they got 4. That's not loaded. 4 is not loaded. 6 that you can count on, that's loaded in this day and age.
I agree with you. I think that yes, this team is talented. I don't think I don't want to put words in your mouth. We're not saying this team isn't talented. It's just, to me, talented depth is something you can bank on. There are positions on this team where you could, like, in your edge room, you got talented depth in the edge room. You've manufactured some depth there. I think at outside linebacker too. I think you've got talented depth with Brad Spence, Anthony Hill, Trey Moore working there a little bit, and you manufacture some depth on the edge with Simmons and Burke. Moore can play there too. If Colton Vossick's healthy, he's produced when he's been on the field. It's just when he's been on the field part has kind of been the issue with him if he can stay healthy. So there are some positions where you've got talented depth. I think safety is one of those positions too. If we're looking at a group of 3 with Taft, McDonald, and Derek Williams whenever he's healthy, but it's just how quickly can that talent turn into commodities that you trust, that you can bank on to play high leverage snaps in conference games. And I think that's, again, I love the way the schedule sets up, because win or lose that Ohio State game, you're going to get all your flaws, your blemishes, everything's going to be out on the table game one. And then you've got 3 weeks and a bye to fix it before you get to SEC play. So watching this team grow through those 3 games before they go to Gainesville, measuring kind of where they are, a great measuring stick going to Columbus, and then seeing, okay, where are they at the bye week? I'm as excited about just that little segment of the season as much as anything big picture.
Well, you are watching Coffee and Football presented by Vaughn Lane. We're going to get to some super chat, some questions in a moment. But first, I'm going to put my Goodrs on, try to do the read in my Goodrs here. Let's
Hey, Jerry's wearing those today out in California. You know that.
Right. You know he is. Stylish Sunny, starting at only $25 a pair. They look great. They're lightweight. Most importantly, they're comfortable. With Goodr, you get no slip, no bounce, but you do get 100% polarized lenses. They're quality sunglasses for a great price. From vibrant colors to sleek styles, there is a pair of Goodrs for every personality. Designed for both everyday wear and active individuals that love to run, hike, bike, play baseball, pickleball, and everything in between. And because they're so affordable, you don't have to worry about losing or breaking them. You can have a pair for every occasion or every sport and everyone in your family. And as you see, I'm wearing the Bevo Vision. It is back in stock. Thanks to my wife, she recently picked me up a pair. I wear them daily. So if you need a new pair of sunnies, Goodr is giving On Texas football listeners free shipping. You can go to Goodr.com/OnTexas, use promo code OnTexas to take advantage of that free shipping. And of course, Goodr offers a 30-day money-back guarantee and 100% satisfaction. Again, that's Goodr.com/OnTexas. Use promo code OnTexas and get free shipping. All right, fellas.
I think you did that read better than Jerry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll be sure
let's all make sure he knows that tomorrow when he returns, by the way.
All right, let's get to some super chats. We'll start with Juan Garza here at the top. Thank you, Juan. He says, I asked this question last night on the live stream, but I want to know your thoughts. If Joey the Mouth McGuire doesn't work out at Tech, I can see Tech throwing screw you money to bring Lincoln Riley in at Tech. Y'all's thoughts?
I kind of cracked up when we got this on the live stream because somebody said, well, he'd had to move to Lubbock. Lincoln Riley's from Muleshoe, so he's perfectly – and he's a Tech grad, so living in Lubbock is not the problem. I'll say this, Bobby, I'll throw it to you. Based on some chatter I heard at the Cotton Bowl from some people who I guess as close as you can be to Lincoln Riley in this day and age, at the time he wasn't – the word that he was not very happy at USC was pretty – clear. That scenario of Lincoln Riley being the head coach at Texas Tech in 2026, it's not as crazy as it maybe sounds on the surface. Even though the buyout is astronomical, there'd be a lot of hurdles. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's not as crazy of a scenario as you might think.
You sure you want Lincoln Riley? I mean, look, he walked into a sweetheart deal at Oklahoma and coached pretty well. What's he done with – maybe he turns USC around this year. But USC's not a great team right now.
No.
Not a great program right now. And he's been at the helm, 3 years, 4 years? Right? I mean, yes. I'm not – if he goes to Texas Tech, okay. I mean, he hasn't necessarily proven to me that he can win a national championship. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And so however they reshuffle the deck chairs in Lubbock with Cody Campbell, I don't know. But I do think that Texas Tech, if for whatever reason Joey McGuire does not win the Big 12 with by far, I mean, he may have the roster in the Big 12 that is 2x spending that of any other roster in the Big 12.
Yeah.
So
you might be generous saying that, Bobby.
If he doesn't win, I think that's That's a good question.
I think one thing that's hampered Lincoln Riley, and this is where we'll see if he grows as a coach. I think this is where you really appreciate Sark. Lincoln Riley's philosophy to roster building, I don't think wins in this day and age. Like, now that he's actually having to build a roster, they were too reliant on the portal along the lines of scrimmage, and that showed. I think he was too loyal to Alex Grinch, which set him back defensively and probably cost. Did it cost SC a chance at a national championship with Caleb Williams as their quarterback? Maybe. And I think, too, I'll give him a chance, Bobby, because I think cutting the cord with Benny Wiley as a strength coach, given what we experienced with him at Texas, I just don't think that was the kind of strength conditioning program that wins you championships. And now that he's cut the cord, did he do it too late? I don't know, but we know it's a big year for him, but I want to see some of these changes that I've been waiting on him to make. I want to see what it looks like now that he's made them.
Other than quarterback, they essentially at USC, what they made, they hired Notre Dame's GM, and in the offseason, really good recruiter. We'll see if he. I mean, apparently he has a good eye for talent because Notre Dame's roster is pretty strong right now. But they hired him, and they basically took everything but quarterback evaluation away from Lincoln Riley. Okay, is that what they want at Texas Tech? I mean. Look, I don't know. I'm not on the Lincoln Riley train. I think he walked into a sweetheart deal at OU where they had the best offensive line and the most talent in the league. He won there, never got over the top. He had 2 first overall picks at quarterback. He's had 3 now, and he hadn't done it. You have 3 number 1 overall picks at quarterback, and you don't win a national championship? Who's that on? I mean, now maybe he attracts great quarterbacks, and that helps Texas Tech because that of late has been one of their big issues. Since Mahomes. So I don't know. I think that's interesting, but I don't know that I would care.
The Rose Bowl in the 2017 season, Baker Mayfield's Heisman year, when they had that lead on Georgia in the fourth quarter. That's the one that Lincoln Riley on his deathbed is going to be thinking about because Oklahoma was probably the best team in the country that year and didn't win a national championship. Bobby, I'll ask you this real quick because CJ and I were talking about this on the Tuesday live stream. We were talking about Ryan Day. If you had to start a program, you got a blank check to hire a head coach. You're the athletic director, or you're the Cody Campbell billionaire bankrolling a football program. You've got to hire a head coach. Are you hiring Lincoln Riley or Ryan Day to run your program?
Dude, I wouldn't hire either.
That's probably the answer.
I mean, those guys. I mean, Ryan Day literally was born on third base.
Yeah,
and now he got over the top last year. That's great, but I don't think that he doesn't instill in me. Hey, I've got a 7-5 program, and I need to turn things around. That's not Ryan Day.
100% fair. Yeah.
Lincoln Riley. I just think the shine on the star is worn a little bit. It's become tarnished. I wouldn't hire either of them if I was starting a program, personally. Now, if they were taking over 12-1 teams, let's talk. If they're taking over 7-5, I wouldn't hire either one of them.
Given what Sark has done in his career, I'd probably hire Sark over both those guys because Sark took over a winless Washington program and got them to a bowl game, in 2 years? And you look at what he's done at Texas. Yeah, I mean, I would trust Steve Sarkisian more to resurrect my program than I would Lincoln Riley or Ryan Day.
There's no question about resurrecting a program. Now, that's whether you would take – I think you have to wait until Sark actually wins a championship with an elite roster before you start. Because, like I said, different teams require different projects. Right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, I'll give you an example. To get to 9, if I'm a 7-5 or 6-6 team, I might hire Brian Kelly over both Lincoln Riley and Ryan Day, even though there are things about Brian Kelly that just crack me up. But he's done it he did that at Cincinnati, did it at Notre Dame. I mean, he can get you to 9 to 10 wins. The question with Brian Kelly is whether or not he can get you to, all the way.
True. Yeah. No, that's good. I like that.
All right, our next super chat this morning comes from Trace Little. Thank you, Trace. He says, our O-line has had time to grow and none have been rushed into service. Also, many got snaps, quality snaps, and Flood has shown that he can coach.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's just I'm where Bobby is on the secondary. That's kind of where I am on the offensive line. I mean, you can say what you want about Jake Majors, but the experience you get starting almost 60 games at this level, you don't replace it. Even though I think there's a chance Cole Hudson's a better player, a better run blocker than Jake Majors. It's going to take a minute for that to come together. But the good thing about that, though, and this is my hope for the offensive line and for the run game, Bobby. I hope Sark and Kyle Flood and Chad Scott, whoever's in charge of the Texas run game plan in the run game, I hope they don't go into the season saying we want to be a wide zone team. We want to be an inside zone team, and you force that. If it's allowed to happen organically, we could see a more diverse run game and a different run game than the one we saw last year. So I think if it's allowed to happen organically with this offensive line where they can grow together and figure out what they do best, I like the I'd much rather face Texas in early September than I would late November or December.
Yeah, I will say one thing I'm looking forward to, regardless of with Jake, with Hayden Connor, and with Cam Williams. One thing I am excited about is fewer false snap infractions. I do think that'll improve this year. Overall, will line play improve? I agree with you, but
win or lose, Bobby, if Texas comes out of Columbus and Cole Hudson has 0 snap infractions, are we giving him like game co-MVP honors?
What did they end the year with? Like 20 pre-snap infractions?
Probably the same thing Kyle Flood and Sark can tell you. Too damn many. Too many. Because, man, I don't know if Coach Shipley's still with us. As a coach, any coach ever interrupt that, the pre-snap penalties are the ones that give you gray hairs and just drive you insane. Because they're, DPI holding like stuff in the heat of the moment that's questionable. I'm not saying it's okay, but sometimes you can live with it. It just not being able to hold your water it just drives you mad.
Well, it made 4th and 8, 4th and 13 last year. There's a positive that came out of that.
Yeah, see, that was strategic though, Bobby. See, that was Shelby Banks. That's your Outland Trophy winner saying, you know what, we need a little bit. Golden needs a little bit more space to open this window. So I'm gonna false start. So that was some strategery by your Outland Trophy winner.
And then we got another super chat from Trace Little. This is going back to earlier. He says, I think our recruiting slump has people feeling spicy. No reason to call Bobby old man. That's not relevant. But your wife did say that you're old, so it's okay.
Look, I've been doing this for 30 years. I think my skin is a little thicker than most people might imagine. I've been called far worse than old. I'll say that. So I'm not I have no problem with that, man. None.
And then we have a super chat from Jackson S. Thank you, Jackson. He says, fire me up, fellas. Baseball may not allow a run in 2026. I think Sloss would be happy with that, but that's.
Hey, what happened yesterday? I saw Kendall Rogers, our friend, runs D1 baseball, reported that 3 pitchers are returning and not going in the draft. Is that right? Or yeah. What was the comment there? Rojas and who else?
Yeah, so it was who did he say? Ruger, Riojas, Max Grubbs, and then Luke Harrison, which of course Jeff and I have been reporting for a while that they weren't expected to leave. So yeah, if you've been watching Bases Loaded or you're a member at ontextfootball.com, then you pretty much knew that one was already in the books. But that is great news for them, as Harrison will be a Saturday starter most likely, and then Sunday we'll see. Friday we'll see as well.
And before, I'm sure because somebody asked it in the thread over on TexasFootball.com, is Dylan Volantis have a chance to be in the weekend rotation? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So that's just it's TBD if he'll be the Friday guy or what. But yes, he'll be given every opportunity to get into the weekend rotation.
Yeah.
Do they see him as a potential starter and not just staying in the pen? I mean, he's so effective out of the pen last year. I mean,
and like Jeff said, I think Friday will probably be the spot for him. I mean, that could change, but him or Harrison, Friday, Saturday. But right now, I think the plan is Harrison to stay at Saturday. So
that fundamentally, if he's not the closer, that fundamentally changes the mindset of your team.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm stating the obvious there, but interesting. That'll be an interesting baseball move.
yeah, definitely. It's going to be fun to see how all the new portal guys and all that really works out for the team in general for a while now. And then Football Texas, we see that you put in a super chat, but no comment or question attached to it. If you'll just put that in normal, we'll fix that for you and get it asked. All right, Bobby, if you would be so kind to tell everyone about Duck Camp.
I will. I absolutely. If you notice this shirt I'm wearing, it's Duck Camp. I love their gear. This is a hoodie, but it feels really, really soft, and it is lightweight, and you can even wear them during the summer. Duck Camp gear is made for the people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, and football to watch. They like doing all that stuff. So they built a company centered on it, based in Austin, and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel. From opening day to game day, they've got you covered at Duck Camp. They believe you can't just sit around and wait for adventure to come to you. You have to get out there, stay out there, and make the most of every second. Here's your great seasons, y'all. Yes, hunting and football that is now 51 days away from the start of football season. Shop hunting gear and fishing gear at duckcamp.com, and it's just also everyday wear. I love their game hats. You may have seen me wear those, the turkey hat, as well as the pointer hat for the dog. Love those as well over at duckcamp.com.
Thank you, Bobby. And it looks like we got our question in now from Football Texas. Thank you for your super chat. Football Texas says, Bobby, could we see a freshman contract if we go to a salary cap and collective bargaining agreement?
Absolutely. There's a rookie contract in the NFL. And slotting and all this other stuff. I think that's a very good likelihood, and I think a very big likelihood, and I think they should consider it heavily. I really do believe that. But there's a lot of talk. Mike Gundy said something yesterday. Leave it to Mike Gundy to say things. He basically said that, look, we should treat them as employees. You had Rich Rodriguez say, in what lifetime is a $500,000 person not an employee? There's some movement gaining steam among coaches now, as well as administrators. Hey, let's go ahead and call a spade and make these people employees. That would lead to potential of collective bargaining. And then you could say rookies get this, freshmen or sophomores get this, or you could change it via what place they are on the depth chart. There's a number of different ways that could be collectively bargained by student athletes. And I think that would be smart overall. And that's where this should go long-term. I'm not sure it will.
And then we have a super chat this morning from Matthew Miller. Thank you, Matthew. He says, with Hudson, I worry pre-snap with calls and checks. Post-snap, I don't worry at all. Bobby, I completely agree about the running backs. The two most talented are returning from injury. I do not know why people do not get that.
Well, Matthew, I want to say this. I think Trey Wisner is pretty darn talented. I wouldn't put him – I definitely wouldn't say – like, based on what I saw last year, there are elements of Trey Wisner that are better than Cedric Baxter. I mean, he sees the cutback lane, I think, better than Baxter. Doesn't mean that he's not got that. Like the problem with Trey is he's just not an inside runner. I mean, you can't stick him on 3rd and 1. You're not running him up the gut. You're not doing it. That's why they came up with the Jarrett Gibson inside handoff in part last year. So I think that those three may be the most talented, and the third one for me is Christian Clark. So I do think he's more talented than Jarrett Gibson. That may be news to people, but that's how I feel. And I hope maybe I'm wrong, by the way, for Jarrett. I hope this is a good year for him, but I get where y'all are going on running back. One of the things, and we can actually segue this to the recruiting talk that we started with this morning, is I wrote this morning about what Texas needs to get in recruiting. I mean, whether Texas gets Jamarian Carlton today at 4:00 or not, Texas needs another defensive end in this class. Okay. I wrote about running backs and started at that position because Texas right now currently has no running backs committed. I don't think Texas just needs a running back in this class. I think they need a game changer, big time back in this recruiting class. Because if you think about it, have they gotten one the last 2 years? The last highly ranked running back they got was actually Cedric Baxter 3 years ago. So I think it's time that Texas injects a elite running back into the program. You know, who's that going to be? They're going to stay on Xavier Crowell. They're recruiting the heck out of Derek Cooper right now down in Miami. I'm just saying, I think that's one of the positions they need a big name. They need a big time player at that position in the pipeline at this point.
I think the other part of that, Bobby, and by the way, I'm with you on Trey Wisner, and I've said it before on the channel, and I'll say it again for those who haven't heard me say it. Trey Wisner is encroaching on Hodges Mitchell level of underappreciation. Like the dude had 1,000-yard season last year. Granted, there was 16 games, whatever. Goal numbers is a 4.7 per carry. Put the offense on his back in the A&M game, was really good down the stretch. So I love me some Trey Wisner. But I do think, though, I'll back up what you said, Bobby, about the need for a big time back by adding. There's the potential that between Trey Wisner and CJ Baxter, there's the potential that neither one of them is on the roster in 2026. You know, if things break right for both guys this year. So then you're at Jarrett Gibson, Christian Clark, whatever you get from James Simon this year. Your margin for error increases significantly if you hit a home run in recruiting this year at running back.
I think they have. I think it's a must, and I know that puts people like, well, where are they going to get that guy from? I don't know. That's Sark and Brandon Harris and Chad Scott, and that's their job. We'll see where they find them. We had a great discussion last night. CJ Rod and I did on the live stream about, we were talking about Caleb Downs and Anthony Hill, about how neither one of those guys plays premium positions, but they're premium players in terms of talking about the NFL draft and how high they may go. You can say the same thing about running back. Like, how much of your funds to go get talent, your talent acquisition funds, how much of it should be allocated to running back? I think it depends on how much your offensive play caller, in this case, who's also your head coach, how much they value the running back position. And in Sark's offense, he values the running back a whole heck of a lot. And a healthy running back is really important to Sark offense, so much so that I apologize if I missed some of it, but there were some folks in the chat talking about the 23 season. I still really believe in my heart of hearts, and Bobby, I'm not saying I'm going to go to my grave believing this, but I may go to my grave believing this. If Jonathan Brooks stays healthy in 2023, Texas wins a national championship. A big-time healthy running back is so key to a Steve Sarkisian offense because of how they use the running back. So I think for Texas, yes, an elite running back is a must. For other schools, it might not be, but for a Steve Sarkisian offense, yes, you need to have a stud in the backfield at all times. I think so too. And that's what I'm getting at. He needs a difference maker. And I think that you talk about NIL. I think the funds are going to be there because I think that you could have both Baxter and Wisner coming off the roll this coming year. So if they don't, then maybe the need isn't quite as obvious. But I got a suspicion that Texas wants a difference maker at running back. So.
The CJ Baxter arc this season, Bobby, is going to be, it's one of the most fascinating storylines with this team because I like the idea of kind of easing him into it and just, getting the wheels lubricated a little bit. And then by the time you get to the end of the season, like when you get to that run of Arkansas, A&M, and then maybe an SEC championship, I love the idea of at that point in it, when the teams you're playing have played a full SEC schedule. Now you unleash a healthy, primed, ready to go, hungry CJ Baxter at the end of the season to kind of be, for all intents and purposes, your closer, take a little bit of the pressure off Trey Wisner. His arc is, I'm fascinated to see how it unfolds this year.
I got Blake, I sent you something via text message that I want, if you don't mind, if you could put it up on the screen. Yeah. One of the things we do, Jeff, you're not always with us in the morning. But one of the things we always try to do is help others and be a positive force in the community, et cetera. And really, we try to be a positive program, right? We're not blasting a bunch of F-bombs and talking negative about it's just one of the things we do. On Monday night, we had a episode of Talking Ball. Myself, Jerry are normally on Talking Ball. Rod joined us for a special edition of it. And part of the reason why is we wanted to raise funds for the folks in Central Texas that have been affected by the floods. During the show, we raised $5,000. Okay. I got news for you guys. Somebody, a member of the On Texas football community, doubled that amount today or this morning. And I know who it is. And I just want to say thank you to them. They literally took us from $5,000 to a $10,000 amount that we raised for the Central Texas Food Bank to impact those. And so the person knows, I know who they are. He wants to remain anonymous, but all I can say is my hat tip to you guys and hat tip to everybody who made that happen. Football is a great sport. We all know it. Life is part of it for us, but just thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for making that a reality, and for everybody that participated in that fundraiser.
All right. Well, you are watching Coffee and Football presented by Vaughn Lane, and we have some off the field super chats this morning. We're going to start with Rhett's. Thank you, Rhett. He says, does employee status raise Title IX concerns even higher, or are we already at that point?
We're already at that point, but does employee status raise it even higher? I've asked people that question before, and the answer is yes. I mean, it does if you start making folks employees. But my thought process there is find the lawyers and get an answer from them, because this is this whole thing is very difficult to understand. I mean, I'm just trying to work through the recruiting angle of it, right? I'm not even thinking about the Title IX aspect. And so, and how it interplays with football. So that's a tough question for me to answer with any kind of authority. I think it does, just from what I've been told, but I don't have I haven't looked deeply into that issue.
And then our next one from Splendid Daddy, formerly Sugar Daddy. Thank you for your super chat as always. He says, where does the salary stuff end? I can see positioning having an allowable range or a contract cap under a CBA or similar. Does that sound crazy?
Not at all. I mean, look, most teams, I talked about this, most teams already have their cap, which is their whole cap. And then they have ranges for each position within the cap. So we were just talking about running back, by the way. In the NFL, running back is typically 3 to 5% of your cap number. Okay. So it takes a great player, a first round pick like Bijan Robinson, to break that number. Okay. It has to be a true difference maker.
Yep.
And so it is position by position, and then the cap overall. Those are the numbers.
I think we're similar to the NFL, Bobby, and I think we're getting this way with the college model. Not to, at the risk of repeating myself, but when you look at quote unquote and when I talk about premium positions, I'm talking about when you look at the NFL and you look at what percentage of a salary cap is allocated to what position. You're talking about quarterbacks, offensive tackles, pass rushers, corners. Those are premium positions. Wide receiver is debatable whether it's a premium position or not. Some guys are paid like it's premium position. Like running back, off-ball linebacker, safety positions that are not quote-unquote premium positions. If you get a premium player, you better pay them like they're a premium position player. But you got to be careful because you could misidentify those guys. Like an Anthony Hill, you pay an Anthony Hill like a premium player. You pay a Caleb Downs like a premium player, a Bijan Robinson like a premium player, but you don't, you save that for the really, really special guys at those.
Let me give you all the distribution in the NFL. Does that sound good? Quarterback is 12 to 14% of your cap in the NFL. Running back is roughly 4% of your cap in the NFL. Wide receiver is 8 to 10% of your cap. Tight end is 4% of your cap. So tight end and running back are the same in the NFL. Then offensive line is the biggest one of all, and that is 20% of your cap. Most players makes sense a little bit, right? Then defensive line is into two categories. Edge is 7%. Interior defensive line is 5%. So your defensive line as a whole are 12%. Linebackers, similar to running backs, 3 to 4%. Cornerbacks, 3 to 4%. Safety, 2 to 3%. Special teams, 1 to 2%. So really, the least valued positions are linebacker, safety, running back, maybe corner, because you have fewer corners too, though. You only have 4 on your roster.
Yeah.
So you have to. That's how Texas or Notre Dame or anybody is having to allocate their funds.
It's about a quarterback and then getting people who can protect the quarterback and who can disrupt the other team's quarterback.
Yep.
It's the name of the game right now.
That is in the NFL for sure. I think college football has some small differences.
Yes, because kind of I don't know if this is where you're going with it, Bobby, with that running back point I made. As much as Sark uses running backs in the pass game, like for Sark, tight end and running back are probably more important than they are to some people. For some people, wide receiver or corner might be more important, but you gotta take care of the guts of your team. You gotta be really good at quarterback and on both lines of scrimmage, especially. I hope everybody realizes now. I've been screaming from the rooftops for years. People, anytime we get the draft time, why is the SEC's overrated? Why are we always talking about the SEC? Why we always talk about the SEC? It's the best line of scrimmage league, top to bottom in college football. The best line of scrimmage talent, and now the Big Ten is right there too. Comes out of the SEC. If you don't have line of scrimmage talent, you're not going to last in the SEC. And I think Texas proved that last year.
I love this. I saw something in the chat. Next coach at Texas Tech is Tom Herman. That would be a fit.
Hey, if you want somebody, that can play up the underdog role, then he's your guy. Hey, Cody Campbell's flipping double birds, Bobby, to college football with the money they're throwing around. You want a coach to do the same, then he might be your guy.
Yeah. Buck Travis asked, can we, speaking of Cody Campbell says he has a plan to save all college sports. Can we get him on OTF to explain his plan? I have no problem with that. Actually, even though he's obviously a Texas Tech booster, if he has a plan to save college sports, I'll listen. I think what he wants to do more than anything is combine all TV rights into one package and sell it like they sell the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. And he thinks that will make all teams more money and solve all financial problems. Because right now, teams are the major networks, ESPN particularly, gets away with just cherry picking what they want and doesn't have to pay for the whole enchilada. Well, Cody Campbell wants Texas Tech to be part of the whole enchilada. So he has some, that doing it that way, Campbell thinks it can save all of college sports. The problem is it might hurt teams in the SEC and Big Ten that are already sharing disproportionately. So nice to know a guy that made his money in oil and gas and making crap ton of money wants to go back and be a socialist, but that's another story. Yeah, Texas Tech belong. I mean, okay.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
No, you're right, Bobby. I mean,
We should share equally with Texas if we're Texas Tech. Should you? That's socialism, right? Not capitalism. And you're a billionaire. Explain that to me.
All right, Bobby. Before we get to our last question or two, will you tell everyone about Vaughn Lane one last time?
I absolutely will. Love Vaughn Lane. If you need to roll between major cities in Texas, use Vaughn Lane. It is the choice to make between, used to have, be able to go only a couple different ways, drive your own car or hop on a Southwest Airlines flight between the cities. But now between Dallas, Houston, Austin, Fort Worth, and San Antonio, use Vaughn Lane. Flying is a hassle. Driving isn't much better. Vaughn Lane changes everything. It's luxury regional bus travel, what some call a private jet on wheels. Sink into a plush leather seat with a leg rest. Stay connected with complimentary Wi-Fi. Enjoy complimentary snacks and drinks on every trip, plus delicious meals on select departures. Need to freshen up? Indulge in hot towel service. Want to relax? We've got eye masks, pillows, blankets to keep you cozy. The Vaughn Lane team takes care of every detail so you can sit back, unwind, and enjoy the most comfortable travel experience on the road. Business travelers, recapture your productivity. If you're driving, you can't be working on your laptop. Leisure travelers, sit back, relax, and get pampered instead of worrying about getting through a TSA line. If you're planning a football game, concert, or special event, you can charter your own Vaughn Lane coach for the ultimate group experience. And Vaughn Lane is first-class travel without the hassle. See for yourself. Visit VaughnLane.com. That's VONLANE.com and use promo code OTF25 for $20 off your first trip. I was talking to somebody the other day that used it multiple times to go see their kiddos when they were in school at Texas as well. So VaughnLane.com, OTF25 for $20 off your first trip.
Bobby, you know who could use Vaughn Lane? I don't know if I told the story on Coffee and Football, but our good friend Craig Way could use Vaughn Lane because one of the best yet most terrifying experiences of my life was after the second game of the Greenville Super Regional in 2022. Dylan Campbell hits the walk-off, get to game 3. Craig, myself, and Roger Wallace are going to basically have a gumball rally going to the Carolina coast to eat at Craig's favorite seafood place, trying to get there before it closes. It's Craig, Roger's in the back seat, I'm in the passenger seat. It's Craig driving down a 2-lane highway in the middle of North Carolina. I have no idea where we are. And there's no, it's dark. It's Craig going about 80 and checking, super regional scores on his phone and, somehow keeping the car on the road. And oh, well, look at the Corvallis Super Regional. I'm like, man, I just hope we get there in one piece. Craig got us there in one piece and got us back. But our friend Craig Way could use a Vaughn Lane trip every now and then, busy as he is.
True story. Myself and Craig Ray used to do a TV show every week called Inside Southwest Recruiting back on Fox, back in when it had the regional networks were called Fox. And we would go from Austin to Dallas every week. And we would fly on Southwest Airlines or American or one of those back in the day. And Craig Way flew so much on that the gate attendants knew him by name. One time we literally got there late because Craig had run over at some event. So he came and picked me up and we got going and we're supposed to there. The plane has gone back, has exited from the jetway and closed its doors and everything. And the plane came back for Craig Way. Only time in my life I've ever seen that. Yeah, he and his travel escapades. And that was, by the way, that was back at old Mueller Airport in Austin.
I was going to say it's pre 9/11 days. So time travel's changed. But I love Craig and love traveling with Craig. And but yeah, hey, I'll say this: the seafood was worth it. He wasn't lying. The seafood was worth it. It was worth being terrified for a couple hours.
We got a super chat from Taylor Johnson. He says, watching him on Wheeling and Dealing, Lance Jackson next to Justice Terry is bigger than I thought, and KJ Lacey considerably smaller next to them.
Lance Jackson has a chance to be 6'6", 285, 290. Justice Terry is more 6'3.5", 6'4". So size is relative. I'll just put it that way. Justice Terry, by the way, has a chance to be eventually way more than Lance Jackson. Lance Jackson has more of a Corey Redding build, if that makes sense.
That's good.
And Justice Terry has more of a Lamar Houston build.
Yeah, that's been my comp for Justice Terry.
Lamar Houston.
Lamar Houston. Yeah.
Wow, it's not bad.
Yeah,
not
and Lance Jack, I think Justice Terry's going to play some significant snaps this year. I'm getting my head around the fact that even though the edge room is deep and it's talented, if Lance Jackson's ready, there's going to be a spot for him situationally, or at least the opportunity is going to be there for him to get reps as the season goes on. I as much as we, and look, I'm not trying to minimize the losses in recruiting. It's all important. You want to get the players that you target, but this roster, going back to what we talked about initially, the talent on this roster, if you see a freshman playing significant snaps on this team, you got a dude for the next 2 or 3 years.
I'm just going to say this. Texas signed some dudes last year.
Yes.
So I don't know if it'll be 5 guys that really play a lot or 3. But I don't think it's going to be 15 because the roster, just how talented it is. But they'll have 3 to 5 dudes.
When you hear guys like Arch and Michael Taft that have been around for a minute, and they start talking about the incoming freshmen, and they say, look, when we see teams like Georgia and Florida and the body types and in Alabama, and when they're starting to see those type guys come into the locker room, you're getting somewhere as a program.
Have y'all seen the picture of Justice Terry in 8th grade?
8th grade?
Yeah. I'm going to show you, Bobby. 8th grade. That's from 2021. He says, after tonight's workout, I'm ready to start my freshman year at Manchester High School. 9th grade, I'm coming. Look at him.
What do you even do with that?
8th grade.
8th grade.
Yeah. That was not me. I was 5'1" in 8th grade. I was 5'1" in 8th grade.
Oh man, that's crazy.
That's kind of what it looked like. I remember the first time I saw Adrian Peterson in person was at the Texas Relays, and watching him like in the lower division 100 meters. And
3A.
Yeah, you talk about, standing out like a sore thumb. It's like, 5'10", 5'10". Oh, holy crap, look at this guy. And then a couple of the 5'10" guys just sticking out like a sore thumb.
8th grade. Jesus.
Yeah, 8.
I can only imagine. You go up against that guy, you're some 5'1" offensive lineman, and you're I mean, at least when you get to high school, you're at least going to be 5'10" offensive lineman, 200 and something pounds.
Yeah. That's what I like to think about, Bobby. Like if you just talk about massive human beings, right? Like there was a point in time where like Jonathan Ogden played middle school football, and somebody had to go against Jonathan Ogden in middle school football. Somebody should have gone to jail for that because that's just not right.
It's insane. All right, one last question for this morning, fellas, before we get out of here, from Way More Blues. What quarterback will we face in 2025 that will give our defense problems? And I'll put the schedule up here and let you each pick a team or a quarterback.
I think it's DJ Lagway.
And you and I are on the same page. I just think, I mean, he's got such a big arm deep, and he throws a nice deep ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think he gives Texas problems because he's the guy that can that can score quick 6 against Texas. Like while I think John Mateer is a good quarterback, I think I don't worry about any of those other guys' quarterbacks, even Taylor Green. Diego Pavia is probably the one that would worry me outside of, I don't know about Ohio State's quarterback, by the way. So he and Lagway are probably the 2 highest rated, but I haven't seen enough of Julian Sayin to say that he's going to be. But after Lagway, the one that worries me the most, because I know who he is Diego Pavia. And he's going to fight and claw until he can't fight and claw anymore, no matter who he's playing. And he's athletic and strong. I don't know.
Pavia for me, Bobby, it's the same reason why you worried about him last year and the same reason why you worried about playing a guy like Sam Levitt in the playoff. I mean, you can have the right front, the right pressure, the right coverage called. If he breaks contain, if one guy messes up, and the one touchdown he scored last year, it was just Jalen Gilbo played the wrong leverage.
Yep.
It's a touchdown. And I look at the end of the schedule, and, with Arkansas and A&M, I like Taylor Green more than I like Marcel Reed. But both those guys last year, especially Taylor Green, I excuse it more of Marcel Reed because he's a younger guy. Taylor Green's just way too up and down for me. I mean, when Taylor Green's good, he's really good. Like, in the discussion for top half of the conference, good. When he's really good. Maybe top quarter of the conference when he's on. But when he's bad, it's the kind of stuff that loses you ball games. And that's just too volatile for me.
Taylor Green, one of his biggest issues was similar to similar to Quinn Ewers. He could not handle pressure up the middle of the defense very well. So that's what I would say.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by Vaughn Lane. I want to thank them along with Duck Camp and Goodr for sponsoring today's show. Bobby, what do you have for folks later today?
Yeah, I want to say this. First of all, number 51, Stan Thomas, Bruce Schultz, some of those. The current roster, there are 2, Marshall Landwehr, senior linebacker out of Highland Park, a walk-on that has seen a lot of time on special teams, actually, as well as Daniel Cruz, the young offensive lineman from Richland Hills. All right, later today, CJ and Jeff and Rod have football theory. CJ, Rod, and Coach Shipley, who we heard from earlier this morning, will be on for the winning drive as well. Should be a lot of fun for everybody. I hope you guys enjoy it. We will also have coverage of Jamarian Carlton's recruitment. He announces at 4:00 this afternoon. Once again, thank you to folks for contributing to that Central Texas Food Bank as well. Now up over $10,000. Just amazing work by the On Texas football community. Thank you.
Yeah. And also a big thank you for all your support. Yesterday, we went over 85,000 subscribers. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, so you're notified anytime we go live, post content, whatever it may be. But just remember, we can't be on here all the time. So head on over to ontexasfootball.com. If you haven't become a member, sign up using promo code OTFOG, and you can lock in a full year of access for just $39.95. That is a limited time deal. Offer available to new subscribers only. So check us out over at ontexasfootball.com. Well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. Hope you all have a great day. And for Bobby Burton and Jeff Howe, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you next time.